Chapter 14. Roselinde, my adorable little daughter. She had never fit in much with her family. They prided themselves for being a close branch of the archducal family, and it was practically tradition that one of them had to serve an archduke candidate as an attendant at the very least, if not as their head attendant. She never saw what was so great about it. Their archducal clan was a complete mess. Caius-Cypher reigned where the goddess of light should reside, and everyone knew it. Lady Veronica ruled with an iron fist, her weak-minded husband dancing to her every tune. It was pathetic. When it was her turn to choose a master, she decided on Lady Constance. She had no desire to be swept up in the fierce conflict brewing between Lady Georgine and her mother. Lord Sylvester's birth had inflamed the conflict even more, and she did not even want to think about the mysterious circumstances surrounding Lord Ferdinand. The less she had to do with all of it, the better. Her lady's departure to Frenbeltag was an opportunity to escape this mess of a duchy, but she could not bring herself to follow her. She had just begun to accept the courting of Lord Gottfried, an apprentice archknight, the heir of a typically neutral-leaning family, the Torwachters. Bloemfontein danced for them. She was sure of it. He would be her dark god, whatever it takes. She had seen how often ladies of her standing had to settle for a strictly political union. Her parents had prepared for it rigorously. It was expected, the norm for someone of her lineage and status. She had made peace with it a long time ago, but being courted by this charming knight made her heart race. Surely she was favored by the gods for giving her this chance. So she remained in Ernfest, accepting Lord Gottfried's raffle. Becoming his goddess of light was the happiest moment she ever had. All seemed so bright then. Not even her family's thinly veiled disapproval could darken the day she finally claimed her dark god. She should have known it would not last. Nothing good ever lasted in this land ruled by Caius-Cypher's followers. It was around that time that she suspected she had fallen out of favor inside of her own faction. It began with subtle harassment, being left out of tea parties with most of the faction's members present, and being either ignored at the ones she was invited to, or being showered in thinly veiled insults by those attending. These started to become more common occurrences. The worst of them all was that petty upstart Vivian. She was just a mad noble, but she was brazenly implying that she was a bad goddess of light to Gottfried, to the silent laughter of the other ladies. It was madness. Was she that powerless already? She did not know what exactly she had done to annoy Lady Veronica, but once the Caius-Cypher had her sights on you, she never lets you live peacefully, it seemed. Then Veronica forced that same poisonous Vivian upon her dark god as a water goddess. They firmly ignored Vivian at first. It was a white marriage and everyone knew it. She was a mere mad noble with a low capacity at that. Children were not possible even if Vivian or Gottfried wanted to, which he did not, of course. Ignoring her was a mistake they soon came to regret in the worst way imaginable. She had just become laden with Godot's burden. Finally they would have a child. She thought it impossible for her happiness to soar even higher. They could not await the day their little treasure would finally be born. The time following their elation was cut short as she suddenly fell ill. Terrible fevers racked her body and she feared she might climb the towering staircase. Fortunately, she endured and her little daughter was born safely. Relief flooded her then. Seeing her little Tuliane was the happiest she ever was. She was promptly graced by Schneist as the test for her capacity resulted in a most heartbreaking result. Her little baby girl had only lay noble levels of mana. It was as if Verdrena had struck with her thunder. She was being forced to give up her daughter. Oh gods, please no. The only way she could think of to increase the girl's capacity to an appropriate level was to teach her to compress mana. She would do anything but that to keep her darling angel with them. She could not allow her newborn daughter to compress her mana so early. It was a trial from Glucklet that she was not willing to force her daughter to take. Despite her attempts to hold on to her daughter, Yorgarais had already danced, and with a heavy heart she and her dark god decided to at least find a good family for her adoption, adding a clause for potential readoption into their house should her mana increase. It was a small consolation. She wept for days following her little angel's departure. She sought consolation in the arms of her beloved dark god as they tried again for a child. She was blessed again by Gedald's burden not long after, but instead of happiness, only her apprehension grew. Would everything be all right this time? She had to prepare thoroughly for any eventuality. Her fevers returned as Dragonor spun her threads, but they were prepared this time. It was revealed she was poisoned by none other than Vivienne. That foul creature of a woman had surely done it before too. It was all Lady Veronica's doing. She had no proof of the latter, but the sweet smiles she had to endure and the whispers behind her back spoke volumes about her current standing in her faction. Was it punishment for only giving marginal support for her? Was this greedy Trombe truly that wicked to target unborn children? She had heard the rumors before, but simply took them as poisonous words meant to discredit her standing. To believe they were true was not helping her mood, not at all. Finally, it was time for her to be visited by Antrin Dunge again. It was another daughter, little Rosamine, just as darling as her older sister, but she remained apprehensive. Then came the moment her capacity was tested. Her daughter fell slightly short of the level expected of an archnoble, just reaching high mad-noble levels. Something inside of her broke at this moment. She just felt numb to the world as they discussed possible solutions to take. It was with a heavy heart they decided to send her second daughter away, to the temple this time. She would never make one of her daughters a servant, never. It still felt exceptionally cruel to her, forcing her own flesh and blood to that hideous place. They used all of their connections to at least allow her an untroubled childhood there. An acquaintance of her Dargot had a daughter leaving the temple soon. She was placed there for her protection until her coming of age. She believed her name was Christine. They arranged for only the best of her foreman servants to care for her little angel. They spared no expenses to make their little girl as comfortable a life there as possible. Subtly, of course, they could not show their favor openly. Officially, she was sent to the temple because of her meager mana. She just hoped it was enough. They never tried for children again. Her heart simply could not take another loss of the chance to become Vegan Milch. And so she lived on, enduring the petty scorn and whispers in her faction, ruled by that hideous Trombe, that agent of Chaos Cipher and enemy of Vegan Milch. She simply smiled through it all. However hard it got, whatever was said, she endured it all. Seeing her little Tullian being baptized under another hurt so much, she could only smile at her lost daughter. She had met with her often as she could get away with anyway. She made sure she loved her with all of her heart, but it was simply not the same. She was not her Vegan Milch, never saw the most important moments of her life. At best, she was the strange aunt that visited often. The cracks in her heart widened as Dragonor worked her weave. It was with a heavy heart she opened the letter the High Bishop had sent her. She was slightly apprehensive about the man, seeing as he was the little brother of that woman. Still, it was unusual to send a message about anything to her, so she began to read, her eyes becoming wide the more she read on. Her daughter was this talented? A genius? It was a balm for her broken heart. At least her daughter was happy there and well looked after. But it was the next part that made her stop, likely even letting out a gasp. But she could not help herself if what was written there was the truth. Then she had a chance. It seemed the gods themselves had blessed her daughter, as she filled so many chalices in her first dedication ritual. The High Bishop suspected she had even more mana than what was expected of her status. If this was true, then she could become her Vijimilch? No more finding reasons to see her daughter anymore. She wept tears of joy at the news. She had to tell her dark god immediately. They had to prepare so many things. There was so much to do. She could not wait to finally have the chance to become what she thought was lost to her. The gods did not curse her after all. It was another shock as her dark god brought up that their daughter might not want anything to do with them. The mere thought chilled her like Sneezed himself had descended. No. She would do anything. Her little girl had to accept her. She couldn't take losing her. Not again. Please, no. He also informed her the current High Bishop was found assassinated just a few hours ago. He was part of the reinforcements requested to the site and saw it with his very own eyes. Maybe Lord Ferdinand had a hand in this? His distaste for Veronica and her ilk, which she was officially part of, was no secret at all, and with him being announced as the new replacement as High Bishop, would surely mean nothing good for her daughter. By the supreme couple, the Aub even announced her daughter was to take his old role as the new high priestess at her age. She was not even baptized yet. Why did he announce this openly? Was it another slight from the old Trompe against her? Wait, could that mean her little girl was in danger? They had to act even faster now. She penned a letter to her daughter immediately, doing her best to pour her feelings into it, requesting a meeting in 4 days' time at their mansion. She waited in anticipation for the reply, and as it finally arrived, with a positive confirmation, she nearly jumped from joy in her happiness. It was not a rejection. She had a chance. On the day of her visit, she did her best to hide her feelings. It would not do to overwhelm her little darling with the affection of someone who was essentially a stranger to her. She still could not help herself as she laid eyes upon her entrance inside of the room. Her little girl was simply so adorable. How her eyes widened slightly upon seeing her. Maybe she could remember her, or felt an instant connection. She had to focus on her daughter, who was giving her greetings now. Greetings, Lady Roselinde. I am called Rosamine. Seeing as I am of now not yet baptized, I cannot offer you my blessings. May I nevertheless offer you prayer in anticipation of this serendipitous meeting ordained by the fruitful days of Shitsaria, the goddess of wind? You may. O Shitsaria, may my gracious host of this meeting be blessed by your divine protection. Oh, that was simply perfect for an improvised greeting. She is so darling. Oh, she even has her father's hair coloring. She subtly reached her hand inside of her face-stone pouch. It would not do to scare her daughter with her wildly flickering emotions. It took all of her self-control to remain in place and not glump the little girl into a hug. But she reminded herself to show more restraint. She began with simple questions, like how her trip to the estate went, things like that. Her daughter held herself with a poise she did not expect from even an Archduke candidate at her age. Her whole demeanor was simply perfect. Too perfect. Where did she learn to hold herself like that? This level of refinement is terrifying. What has my poor baby endured to shield herself like that? She signaled to change the tea. It was one of the more expensive blends she enjoyed, and it seemed her daughter enjoyed it too. Her eyes became just slightly less guarded than before. She began to question her about her life in the temple, using her attendance and education as an excuse. It was as good as any in her mind. She learned that her daughter was not really interested in Conceal's domain and preferred Mastinora instead. Well, it made sense. She heard her little girl had asked for books, but at the tender age of 4, a true genius indeed. But that one answer to her question. Oh my, Ordinarily was sure busy, it seems, that our plight was even heard by our most distant patrons. But I cannot say I was starved of opportunities to acquire what is necessary. That one hurt. Quite a bit, in fact. She could not suppress her wince upon hearing how her daughter thought about her family, about her. She even began questioning about how much she was told from the now deceased High Bishop. One thing was made ultimately clear. Her daughter did not trust her. Her daughter did not trust in her good intentions. Not at all. It broke her heart all over again. But in her mind she knew it was only natural, expected, but it still hurt to be so clearly stated by her daughter. She stilled herself once more. She had originally intended to wait until tomorrow for this, but the talks were coming to a close. She had to make sure her heart would not be broken even further upon realizing all this was just a sweet lie by that little brother of a Trombe. Another plot to break her even further by building up her hopes of regaining one of her daughters, just to cruelly smash it by discovering she was still too low in her mana capacity. She ended their dance of Grimmarator, focusing maybe a bit forcefully on doing a test right now, but she simply had to know. Guiding her little angel through the estate did much to calm her stirring emotions. It was not until they arrived inside of her hidden room and her daughter was taking her place in the offered seat that she realized her little darling had a worried expression on her face now. Was she scared of the consequences if her mana was not high enough? She had nothing to worry about. She was at an age where she could softly introduce her to compression if she was willing to take her offer. Should she refuse, she would simply have to accept it and let go. Her fingers slightly trembled as she placed the tool which had doomed both of her daughter's futures in the first place on her temple again. Please do not be too low again. By the gods above, please have enough this time. Her pleas were answered in the most absurd way possible, as her daughter began to turn the ancient family heirloom into fine golden sand at a rapid pace. It took no more than a few seconds. The once dreaded icon which heralded the beginning of her misery pulverized to dust before her very eyes. It was not until her darling nervously asked a question that she was awoken from Schlafthrum's realm. So, I think it is not normal for that to happen. She looked at her daughter again. She was slightly trembling now, her eyes now shining with tears. By the 7 above, she looked just like an adorable little Shumil now. Her heart was not prepared for this. No, it's not, but this was the confirmation she wanted. This meant she could be her Vijamilch. She could baptize her daughter as her own child, but The measuring tool breaking meant she had a mana capacity that could rival greater duchy archduke candidates, which meant her little angel was already compressing. No, she specifically sent her daughters away to avoid exactly that. How much did she compress for something like that to happen? By the supreme couple, it did get mentioned she had a fever just recently. Was that her finally succumbing to her compression? How much did she suffer? Her poor daughter. Most likely she did not even know what she was doing. It just got even more important she could become her Vigemilch. Do not worry about it, Rosamine, but this means you have more than enough mana. Still, I have to ask, do you want to... She failed to voice her innermost thoughts at this crucial moment. No, she had to push on for her daughter's safety, if not for her own desires. She tried again. I mean, are you fine with returning to your family to become my daughter officially? Please say yes. Her daughter did not reply instantly, as she hoped. She merely stared at her. No, through her, as if she was looking into her very being. Was that a rejection? If that is what you wish, Lady No! She took a moment to gather herself. She could not scream again. I mean, yes, it is my wish, but if it is not yours, I will respect that. No hidden motives. This is not an order, just... Would you be my daughter, please? Her little girl remained unmoved. So I can refuse if I want to? Yes. It took all of her noble education to keep herself from crying. Her daughter was rejecting her after all. She approached her too late. Maybe she was too forceful. Whatever it was, she had just lost her last chance at finally being a mother. She slowly moved to take a seat at the table. She did not even care enough anymore to uphold the natural grace that was expected of her. What did it matter in the end? She was a failure of a lady, a woman, and a mother. Wait, she could wallow in self-pity later. She at least had to warn her little angel about the danger of her compression, even if she would never be her daughter officially. Rosamine, about your... That is fine with me, then. She did a double take. Did her ears deceive her? Was it a final trick by the gods to make her feel even worse? Why give her hope just to snatch it away like Godot from the supreme couple during winter? But just in case it was not a prank of the gods, she looked at her daughter again and asked, You mean you agreed to becoming my daughter? For me to become your Vigemilch? To be baptized under me as my daughter this coming summer? Yes, mother. Her heart soared at the daughter's declaration. She knew it was not complete acceptance, but she did not care. She was her mother, her Vigemilch. Finally! She could not hold back her tears anymore. But unlike the tears of despair, these were of joy at being accepted, or at least given a chance. She tried to compose herself again. She still had things to do. First, she needed to make sure news of her daughter's mana capacity never reaches that blasted chaos cipher in the heavens. She knew what happened to exceptional people in Ehrenfest. She would not let her daughter become another Ferdinand. She was taken out of her thoughts as she registered her daughter had left her chair and moved in front of her. Those shining golden eyes still held a hint of suspicion, but she was clearly giving her a chance at least. She stretched her tiny little arms at her. Was that her daughter requesting a hug? She stared in disbelief at this adorable girl she was allowed to call her daughter now. I meant to say, can I get a hug? She didn't even wait for her daughter to finish her sentence. Moving faster than Steve Bryce, she threw her arms around her little girl, her heart soaring once more as she finally had the chance to take one of her daughters into her arms. It was bliss. Her small hands returned the embrace in kind, and she could hear tiny sobs coming from her little angel as well, combining with her own. They stayed like that for gods know how long, their tears washing away all the pain she had experienced in the duration of their talks before. After a while, she heard her daughter's bell-like voice, speaking in an obviously raw quality from all her there crying. Maybe it was her mind playing a trick on her, but she would swear until she died she heard the tiniest of whispers. I miss you so much, Mum. She squeezed her little darling even harder. They stayed like that until she noticed her daughter had cried herself to sleep. She only held her even more close, if that was possible. Now she was content. She placed a soft kiss on her forehead, her daughter snuggling into her, seeking her warmth. Finally, she had become her Vijay. She would never let go. Never again.